somewhat of a breakdown. I think it's fairly obvious, but somewhat of a breakdown for my what's been named the Sansone Box Theory. um, so basically, let's kind of go back. This has been in my mind for a little bit. It's really been based on fibs. So I got into crypto right around January when things were kind of pumping a whole bunch, and they were in these kind of zones. Yeah, there were these. So I got like in right around in here. And things were just kind of running up. I was just learning about crypto. I hadn't started trading yet. I think I finally opened my account around in this area, like literally right as things were peaking at the all-time high of 2045 at that time. And I remember being in a trade long up here. I was following along with CF, I think, at the time, and it was literally right at the top when things were going, and I think he had put something in. I was still kind of learning market cipher, but I still sort of understood it and saw that things were turning, but for some reason I stayed in the trade anyway. And I remember riding that bitch all the way down negative, and that was my first kind of experience of trading down in this area. And I want to say I ended up cutting it damn near the bottom of it. Or maybe I sat through this first drawdown. It came back up. I felt good. And then it kept coming down again. And then it went down even lower. And then that's when I think I ended up cutting it around there. This has been an interesting year for sure. But I definitely remember this drop and all of this. And then watching as things kind of went back up from there. So this fib is taken from, yeah, that all-time high at that time, which was 2045, all the way down to 1295, where this pattern kind of bottomed out. And now in hindsight, looking at it, these fib extension levels, this was the max one that is available, and it turns out we've peaked, or that the new all-time high of 4377 actually happened to land right in between this area, which I thought was very, very interesting. And this has actually been on my radar for quite a while. Minimize this. If we look at this chart, so this is basically the same thing. 1295 to that 2045 area. This was a fib, and I had seen this. I mean, you can see shit. This was so far ago. 3,222. We hadn't even done all of this shit yet. So this has been on my radar for a while, these fib boxes. And then I decided to, once we did this massive accumulation thing again for months, looking at it, I was like, fuck, this pattern looks so much like this little one down here, because I remember that drop so vividly because it was my first kind of experience in trading. So when I saw this and it finally started to play it, I'm like, fuck, that looks familiar. I was like, all right, let's take a fib box from that all-time high to the base around 1700, and that's what this next one is. And then these extension levels put us out to 13,000. So, like I said, this theory has been in my mind for a while, just because of that. So I kind of forgot about this. I was just like, oh, that would be cool, if we got up to 13,000. You can see this pattern hadn't developed a whole lot yet, but if we go back to the chart, now, yeah, so 3022 was like somewhere in this area when I finally saw that, and so we've played out all of this since then. Then I was finding some other fractals from like 2017 that I was overlaying this price action, and it lined up really well. But this area, based on that fractal I had found, was supposed to come down damn near this red line again over in here, and I had been expecting that for a while. So I took out a short around 3,000. We bounced around in here, and I was just patiently waiting for it to come down to here. It never did. And then I remember CF getting in along here, and I was still in my short, and things just started going and going and going, and I don't think I cut the short till like here, which really sucked. That was just me being stubborn. But at that point, I decided to look back at things, and I saw this like spike situation, and I remember that similar thing happening over here as well. And so that's when things kind of started to click for me that, we're kind of repeating similar formations as here. So mainly this head and shoulders thing was the one I noticed. So if we kind of zoom in, we had done this accumulation, which you might know as the wick-off accumulation or whatever that Crypto likes to talk about. He was talking about it during this whole time, and we'll talk about that in a little bit more, but this was one of those accumulation zones. This was one of those. I saw this head and shoulders, and I was like, oh fuck, we're kind of doing that same thing. Sideways, spike up, sideways, and then drop into this area. And once we started coming up here again, like I said, that was finally where I decided to cut my short. I'm like, fuck, we're not going back down anymore. So I had to figure something else out, find a new fractal, figure out what the fuck was happening. And that's when I decided, like, okay, we're getting close to this area. We're about to break out and get close to the all-time high again. I was just curious, well, how did we handle that last time we were at that all-time high? Did we fuck around? Did we drop down hard? Like, what happened? So that's when I scrolled back over here and kind of, based on these fibs, decided to make these boxes around these key areas. So we peaked it in here. We had this long accumulation. We did the head and shoulders thing, dropped back down, did another kind of a form of the wick off in here. We ran up, and then this was a whole nother accumulation box that happened right around the all-time high. And then we went up to this next fib level, so I decided to put a box around there. I see that we did another drop down kind of accumulation thing. Spike back up, and then back down. This was the kind of whip back and forth move we did. And so I just decided to put boxes around these areas. And then that next kind of run-up, I remember this run-up just not stopping. And everyone was like, we got to correct, we got to come back to the 50. Like, it's going to happen type thing. It never happened. But then this was like a small accumulation area right around this fib, which I found fascinating. And then it ran up again, kind of tapped this, knocked that as resistance a little bit, peeked our head over, slammed back, gave one last attempt up, which brought us closer to the top. Didn't hit it exactly, but it's up there. Back down again to make this M pattern, or this head and shoulders. You could also call this whack off an inverse head and shoulders. This could be considered an inverse head and shoulders. If you're a Tino and Trader's Reality guy, this could be considered a W formation, whack off, whatever you want to call it. They're all kind of the same. So I think getting familiar with these patterns and the different variations is going to help you. In general, what I have found is after every major drop, we do some form of that pattern. You can see here, it's usually a hard spike down, a quick recovery, hard spike down, quick recovery. Then we fuck around for a little bit, but eventually it brings us back to at least where that first drop was, if not a little lower. That usually creates divergence that brings us back up, and then we do one more attempt down. Sometimes this one goes lower than this one, and then this third one goes even lower, so they're like descending. You get your 3 divergent touch points before shifting out. Sometimes it's like this one where you have a touch, the middle one goes way low, and then the top one comes up. That's kind of an inverse head and shoulders. Or sometimes they do moves like this one, which is also a similar pattern, inverse head and shoulders if you want. But what's interesting about this one is this first one spiked low. These middle ones never quite got there, and then these last ones never quite got there either. And that's because they just trapped people short down in there, trapped more people, and trapped more people. And they just didn't want to go down lower to let those people out of their positions. And when you see something like that, you know something major is probably coming, just because they trapped all those people and they weren't letting them out. And that was going to be, again, this is where I trapped myself, was in this area. But all of those people who they left trap expecting more downside, that's what fueled this entire run up, you know. Um, so based on that, these are kind of the boxes, accumulation zones that I've noticed. And then once we got back to this all-time high, I kind of wanted to see how we behaved. I noticed this little W pattern, accumulation drop, and then kind of like a shift back up, more knocking at the top before kind of coming out. And then sure enough, man, a little bit into this, after this little maneuver, I saw this W, and it was right around here. I'm like, oh shit, this is looking similar. It's playing out. I'm expecting this drop. So I remember shorting that in there. Since then, this has been a little bit different than the other one, but I think that's to be expected. As you can see, none of these zones have had the exact same price action. What happens in between is definitely different each time, but the overall pattern or accumulation pattern has been the same. You know, shoulder, spike up, shoulder, W formation down here, shift out, accumulation of some sort, kind of sideways accumulation, shift out. So I can't help but think that we're going to come up to this fib level. Everybody's kind of expecting 5,000. 5,000 really isn't that far. So if I had to guess, we'd come up to 5,000, maybe do a little correction from there. But really what I think makes more sense is we get to 5,000. Everybody's going to expect that number. They're going to close their long or even try to short it at that point, because I imagine they'll fuck around once we get to that 5,000 area. You know, they'll make it seem like resistance, like we're not going to break through. Everybody will close. They'll try to short again, and then that will be the fuel for them to keep running it up to 6K. I think that just makes sense. You know, they trap the people short, keep it running. All of the people who were going long and close their positions, once price starts running up again, they'll be like, oh fuck, we're still going. I need to hop back in. So they'll have a whole range of people trapped from 5,000 to 6,000 for that. When they do a spike down back into this zone, it's going to wipe out all of the people who were long in here and never close their positions. That's what those moves are, is to wipe out all the people. You know, people are going long in here, we're buying, so the market makers are selling us those positions, so they're going short this entire time. Eventually they have to pay themselves off, and that's what those spikes down do. They knock all the people out of their longs, close their shorts, and then they can keep moving again. And if you look back here, that's exactly how this whole move was fueled back here. They had all the people going long. Then once we got up here, they slammed it down. You can see how far down they came, almost to the base of this last drop. We'll talk about what that could mean for us in the future. But they slammed all the way through that, trying to knock the stops of all of those people out. They did this, brought it back up again. They broke out past where we stopped before, and the reason for that is, okay, we broke this previous high, fuck, we must be going again. Now we're really going to the moon. So they break out a little bit higher to make people think we're going. Those are those breakout traders. They trap those people again. Now they got everybody, all the moon boys committed, and they slam it back down again, almost all the way down to where the move started to shift out. Again, knocking all of these people out of their longs. They get all of their coins. They fuck all the people who are in short or in longs up here, and then they do it again, and they start shifting back out, right? And then these were all the people that, again, all right, well, resistance, boom, we got to be going to hell. People are shorting again. But you can see they never came down to let these people out. So there are still people who were probably trapped short in all of these areas, you know, but they kept bringing price back down, giving them hope that, you know, maybe we could keep going down. But it just never happens, and then all of those people in this whole area, that's what fuels this run-up that just never stops. And this is going to come eventually, and I would hate to fight this trend or wait for the correction. Like, you know, I'll wait for the dip, and then I'll get back in. You can see it just, there's a point where that doesn't happen. and you have to just be in a position and just let it go. So will they do something like this? I imagine so. Will it be exactly like this? Probably not. I hope it is because of how similar all these other zones have been, but it's kind of tough to say. So my current plan is to, if we do get to 6K and then we start to do this little M formation thing, let's pull up Cypher here real quick and kind of talk about that because I think it's interesting also in relation to kind of where we are. You can see this kind of pump up. Once we finally left the zone officially, this Cypher line came up and exceeded the previous high. So it wasn't divergence at this point. You know, we made a new high. It had come higher than this one as well. It just, that kind of erased everything, which is what was needed. That got us to pump up to here, this little area. Then we got another little, this is the 4-hour time frame, by the way. We got this other little bump. That's dot 2, which gets you up here in this area. And you could short that divergence because that did bring us down to here. Again, wiping all of these people out. But then it was this, oh, I'm sorry, 1, 2, so this was 1, 2. Some people could try to short that in here, but then there was 1/3 pop up, and then that was the top one. Usually you want to short or long your third divergent dot. That's usually the signal that it's the real one. Sometimes they only do 2, but 3 is really safe. So that gave us this here. It dropped down. That committed all the people to shorts that were like, oh fuck, let's go. They spiked it back up one more time to knock out all of the people who were going short in here. They got their shorts filled one more time, and then this was the dot that brought us down to hell. So I'm expecting something similar, us kind of tapping around up here, doing some sort of M formation, and then dropping down. So my current plan is to still keep holding this long all the way up until 6K. If I see things kind of start to behave like this on Cypher, I'll start to feel better. Once we hit that 6K area, I'm gonna wait for this drop down as the signal. I'm not gonna close the long yet. I might take profits at 6K. I'm not gonna close just yet. I'm actually probably gonna close like maybe a quarter of my position. I'll wait for this move, then have it come back up, and then if I see another dot like this, or I just see something similar to this happen, I'll know that this fractal is actually kind of playing out, and I'll feel really confident. I'll close another quarter of my position, and I'll consider shorting at this point. I would like to get the position up here higher for the short, but again, just because they could alter the way this pattern plays out, I don't want to be trapped in a short again. So I'm only going to short it if I know for sure that things are looking good. So by the time this move is done up here, I will have closed half of my position. I plan to, you can see how low this went. It went all the way down almost near the bottom. So I kind of plan to, there are some vectors. We'll bring it up to what this pattern looks like currently. But kind of just DCAing this whole area down low, or just completely this whole zone, DCA all in here, and kind of whatever it hits, and then hopefully my position will end up averaging somewhere near the bottom here, and then I'm just going to sit through this. I don't think I'm going to fuck around and try to catch this move at all. And this could take a long time to play out, I don't know, but I'd rather be holding this position down here and sit through all of this nonsense than try to make that little bit on those couple of moves. Yeah, it would be nice profits probably, but I don't want to have the stress of trying to re-find a new position, not knowing exactly how this is going to play out. You know, I would rather hold that and just from there all the way the fuck up. You know, why not? So that's kind of what I'm thinking. So let's go to what this looks like now, and kind of what that could mean for our future. So we're in this box. It feels like we've kind of broken out. The only difference here is this was that long wave that was supposed to be higher than all the others. That's how the previous fractal had played. This hasn't. This is creating divergence right now. We got boom, 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 boom. So this, they could fuck around here and drop us down more. You know, play in this area. People are talking about the CME gap, which I think is down in this area, the 45, maybe lower, 44 or something in here. So maybe that happens one more time before they actually do decide to move. I'm not sure. So I'm just kind of watching things right now. But if things do keep playing out and we do end up hitting that 6K fib up here, we know they do some sort of M formation and then they drop it back down. And based on that previous fractal, they brought it down into this area. So we could come all the way back down. This is 4,000 right there. We could hit 4,000 again. Now, when we did this drop here, I expected this drop to actually go lower and recover this green vector candle, which is at 38.50. I expected them to come down and get that, but they didn't. So part of me thinks that when this drop happens, they could wick down below this whole area and even go lower and get that green candle that they had left at 38.50. So my current position is right here at 42.50, right in this area where this green vector is that they haven't recovered. You better bet your ass they're going to come back for this on that move down. So my position is here. I'm going to close almost half of it by whatever happens up here. So I'll still have half sitting here. I'm going to open another half again at my original entry for when this comes down. So I'll have the exact same entry again, except I will have made that profit. And then from my entry all the way down to that 38.50 is where I'm going to spread my DCA orders. So I have a feeling they're going to at the least come back to this 4,200 candle on that drop. And they could stop there and shift out, but I'm pretty positive they're going to come there. If they don't, I still have half of my entry, so I'll be good. And then maybe I can try to enter in another half somewhere up here once things start to play out. But if they wick lower, I'm going to get that extra order. So I'll actually have a larger position size than I did for this initial move, but I will also have more capital in my bankroll at that time. So, and then the goal is to just hold that through whatever the fuck happens. And God, this could take a couple months. I don't know. Maybe I'll take profits out up here again and maybe just enter back in. Maybe at that point the pattern will have played out very well where I'll feel more confident in doing that. But I'm going the diamond hands route here and just kind of rolling like that. So we shall see how things behave, but if this overall theory plays out and we do keep hitting these fib levels, 6K is important, 8.7 is important, and then up in between this area, somewhere between 11,000 and 13,000. So like if I were holding, I would probably be closing my holding orders. I would DCA out in this whole area, which is probably what I'm going to do even with the other trade. Just I'm going to spread orders out over that whole area, and then whatever it kind of hits, it hits. And if things start to tank again, I'll just manually close the position out. But that's the theory as of now. Things seem to be playing pretty damn well. We'll kind of see. We're at an interesting area in the charts. We're still battling with that all-time high. We haven't really made a major move yet. The difference is here, this green box was split right down the middle across that all-time high. So we actually did this pattern above and below the all-time high, which gave us a shorter room to run. Like you can see, this pattern came about a halfway between these fibs. So the run up from here to that fib wasn't very far. But here, we did most of this pattern underneath the all-time high. So from this fib to this fib is a lot further. But we're kind of approaching that halfway point, and that 5,000 price point is kind of right in between them. So I'm hoping this move will kind of bring us up to 5,000. They fuck around 5,000, make people think it's resistance and that we're going to drop, and then they push the rest of the way. So that's kind of what I'm expecting. I look at this every day, every 4-hour candle. I take a look to see what's happening. But yeah, all right, that was longer than I expected. I apologize. Hopefully that helps explain the Sansone Box Theory. All right, talk to you later, guys.